So this is video in my little shorter video series number 14, and this one I'm calling No Fear. It's really going to be talking about all religions in life, but I'm emphasizing the great Swami Vivekananda, whose really his writings and lectures were 1890 to 1902 when he passed away. He came to America to bring Vedanta Hinduism to America, spirituality, and he gave lectures all over the country. He went to then Europe, and then he came back to America. He's even quoted by the President Obama. So he emphasized in many, many ways to have no fear. Be strong inside, and he talked about how to do that. And I'm going to just bring up some quotes about what he emphasized. But first, let me just bring up, when I started exploring the religions of India, I went into the Vedanta Ramakrishna Temple in Sacramento, and I bought a couple books. This is the first one, the lower left, Meditation by. I didn't know who Vivekananda was. And I also bought the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Vivekananda. It's a great read. I'd recommend both of them. Yeah. So let me just recognize that right off the bat. It's interesting how this works. I think this whole concept of fear and overcoming fear, and if we're really honest with ourselves, we see it everywhere in life. And it's interesting that sometimes I think, and I really believe this in Vivekananda, now that I mention it, he talked about probably the greatest gains you make in life is when you're overcoming fear, when you're tackling difficult situations. I even think, if I remember paraphrasing, when he passed away, right before he passed away, he was saying, thank you, God, for all the blessings in life, but also all the challenges, because the challenges is when I made the most gains. I think that's really, yeah. I remember when I made my first video, I was scared out of my mind. What if it's rejected? What if people, it's just nonsense. But we all have some of it, I think. Maybe everybody does. I know I did, or do. So let's just get right to it. There's a couple quotes here. Is that it? This is a particular quote I brought up that was just great. I'm not going to leave it on there for long, but fear is death, fear is sin, fear is hell, fear is unrighteousness, and fear is wrong life. All the negative thoughts and ideas that are in the world have proceeded from this evil spirit of fear. This is really interesting. I think people hang on to things for fear of losing it. People attack others for an internal fear. Fear, fear, fear. I mean, you can really wind it down. Yeah, fear. So here's a little bit more on it. Let's see if I go to this display. This is, I just Googled it just a few minutes ago. Swami Vivekananda's teachings on no fear emphasize that fear is a source of this is interesting, of all misery and weakness, while strength and power come from within. He encouraged individuals to be fearless by repeating, I have no fear, believing in one's own inherent strength and divine potential, and rejecting anything that weakens them physically, intellectually, or spiritually. He stated, fear is death, fear is sin, fear is hell, fear is unrighteousness, fear is wrong life. That's the quote I just brought up. That's funny. Anyway, then he gets onto this, and I'm going to kind of leave it here so you can read it on your own, but Vivekananda taught that within each person, this is the divine principle that he would be talking about. He was a disciple, devotee of the great Sri Ramakrishna of the late 1800s. So Vivekananda taught that within each person lies an ocean of infinite power and blessedness, and that believing oneself to be strong is the key to becoming strong. I love that. Goes along with the same ideas of a few videos ago that meditate on all the great qualities that we think of God or spirit, strength, peace, love, and that will blossom, and fear will go away. Fear might percolate up, and then you let it go. He talks about acting with courage. He famously said, be a hero. Always say, I have no fear. Tell this to everyone. Have no fear. Rejecting weakness. Face challenges directly. I think that's beautiful. I'm just going to tell you a story about my brother. When I was about 18, we were chatting one day, taking a walk down the street. We went to the same university. He was a couple years older than me, and I was telling him about a situation I was having a tough time dealing with. And here's this guy, man, 20 years old, and he actually said, you know, I made a comment to him, and it said, I should have done something different. And he said, you know, Jeannie, I think should have means must. You must confront your fear. A 20-year-old. And he said it not as a 20-year-old. Now, does that mean he always practiced it? No, but I can tell you he is a very strong man. And looking back, you can see that principle right there. Yeah. Next one, understand the nature of fear. Vivekananda saw fear as the root of many problems, equating it to death, sin, and unrighteousness. Yeah. Anyway, there it is. Read it. I don't want to make these too long, but I think it's something. In fact, if you Google Vivekananda on no fear, you'll see just tons and tons of quotes. And I would highly recommend the books. He has a whole series of many, many books. Yeah. And back to the whole idea of finding your own path when it comes to self-realization. You know, for whatever reason, Vivekananda, the great Swami Vivekananda, was the first I found. Then I read Ramakrishna. Then I started to explore more Buddha. But I think they're all the same. I think but you have to find what communicates for you at that time. And I know the fears I felt when I first started to look at Vedanta Hinduism. And to recount that story, if you haven't heard it, I remember looking around and trying to find a temple, and I couldn't find one near me. And there was this Ramakrishna monastery. I call it the Vedanta Temple, and I guess it's both. And I drove down to Sacramento, and they had a little sign kind of hidden behind a bush, and I walked in, and it was a wonderful place. But boy, I thought I was going to get jumped. I thought people were going to start asking for money, and they're going to tell me I need to do this or that, and dogma, 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 this is the only way. None of that. But I was so fearful, and I'm so glad I overcame it at that time, and wandered around, and I found out they had a little bookstore, and everybody was kind and just doing their thing. I didn't see anybody for the first half an hour, and then I went into their little bookstore, and these are the books I bought. And yeah, so I was sweating bullets. I was so afraid. And many years ago, so glad I did. So maybe we all need to overcome this or that as we continue on our paths. And whether it's a path of self-realization or just doing your job or your duty in life, I think this principle of no fear is really applicable, especially considering today's environment. Don't back down. I think if we back down, we become attached to those fears. Yeah, so we'll just leave it at that.